Hey, I'm Matty D, and this video is going to be a guide on how to use less filament on your 3D prints. Supports can be vital in 3D printing, but there's a lot of ways you can save filament just by changing the position of your model or a few settings in your slicer. Now I'm going to be using this mask as an example because if you print it the wrong way, you can waste a lot of filament, and this applies to a lot of different models as well. So just start by loading in the model, and this is just the default positioning, how it drops in when you load the model. So we're just going to slice it as it is and see how it is because there's quite a few overhangs, so I'm expecting a lot of support material. So we have 1 day, 14 minutes, and that's 209 grams of filament. So that's a lot of filament used for something that's not that big. So you can see the support density covers almost every little overhang, and that's not really that necessary, especially with PLA. So let's just tilt it 15 degrees, and that will make a big difference. That just changes the amount of overhangs. So we'll just slice it like that, and we'll see what happens. And we're down to 20 hours, so we shaved off 4 hours already and about 30 grams of filament. So that's not too bad. You can see the support density is much less, but let's just do another 15 degrees and see what happens. 16 hours now and 137 grams. So that is a lot. And honestly, you could print it like that. That's not too bad. Like, it uses a good amount of filament, but you'll have everything supported nicely. But I'm going to go even further. This is probably what I would typically do. So if you pay attention to the overhangs, you can see each layer kind of overlaps the previous one, which makes it possible to go with even less support. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to use the support blocker tool. So you just click on there, click on your model. So then I'm just going to resize it to cover the area I want. And what this tool is going to do, anything it's overlapping or covering is not going to be supported, while keeping the supports elsewhere in the model. So I'll just reposition it, make sure it's covering all the spots I want it to be covered. Get it just right. And then when it's where you want, you just go and slice it. And we cut it down to 10 hours and 34 minutes using only 88 grams. So we've basically cut it in half. And that's pretty good. You could totally print this and like you'd get a great result. The eyes are still supported because there's pretty good overhangs there. You would have to do some bridging. So I'm going to go a little further even. I'm going to print it with those eyes covered as well. Also, there's a setting here I just want to show you. You can change this, make it higher without having to do support blockers, and it will just generally reduce the amount of supports. Let's go back to the support blocker now, and I'm going to adjust it once again to cover the whole thing, including the eyes, but leaving that little bit at the bottom because that bottom does need support. That'll help with your bed adhesion. You want good adhesion when you're printing like this. So now that it's covered, slice again. And we're down to 9 hours and 20 minutes. So it saves a little bit more. It's not a lot, but I'm going to try it and I'll show you kind of why this one's a little more risky. But it all depends on the quality you're looking for. So you see the amount of overhang is quite a bit higher and it doesn't overlap as nicely. It kind of skips out a little bit. So you could get a little bit of issues there. And then at that very peak, you can see it bridges right across. So you need good cooling, but you can make it work. And afterwards, I'm going to show you what the model looks like so you can see what happens here. I'm just going to save it now, send it off to my printer, and then we'll take a look. So here's the model, and it turned out pretty good. You can see the overhangs that are here. There was no issues at all printing, even with no support. And then here is where there's a tiny bit, as you can see, these little bits here. And for me, that's not too bad. I'll accept it, but support would help that. What you can actually do, and what I do sometimes, take a soldering iron, one that you don't really use, and just run it along there, and it'll just flatten it right out. But yeah, I think it turned out pretty good. So if you found this video helpful, consider subscribing because I'll be doing a lot more like this in the future.